The only people that are interested in SEO are SEOs. And the media has never been interested. But what's happened is the media have jumped on the AI overviews being flawed and incorrect. Therefore, Google now is just associated with SEO. So what's happening is all the conversations about AI overviews is coming back to SEO, when the reality is AI overviews affect all channels. Wherever search happens, it affects all channel data.
You're listening to Inside Commerce, a weekly e-com strategy, technology and CX focused podcast hosted by experienced digital consultants and re-platform specialist James Gurd and Carl Rogers. Get insights into e-com strategy and leading brands, hear from industry thought leaders and leading tech vendors with practical advice to help you improve your online CX. This episode is sponsored by Shopify. And our topic today is an important one. It's about organic SEO. Is it getting harder? Looking at things like Google's SGE, protecting brand search and strategic considerations for e-commerce teams. So a warm welcome back to a guest who was on previously talking about SEO and SEO strategy. So Carl Hendy is the founder at audits.com. Hey Carl, how you doing?
I'm great, really good. Getting sort of early evening here. And also the cyclone has gone. So much better this week.
Yeah, thanks for joining us from Australia. Glad to hear that bad weather passed you by. Well, didn't pass you by, but didn't leave any lasting damage.
Yeah, all good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, mate. I'm really looking forward to this because we talked about this a few weeks back about, there's so much emphasis now around paid media for various reasons. But organic is still critically important. And I've been having a few conversations recently with people who've started questioning again, how do we reduce our dependence on paid? How do we make sure our organic is stronger? And I thought this would be a really interesting episode. Before we get stuck into the details, do you want to give us a bit, for those who don't know you, a bit of an intro to who you are, what you do, and also tell us about your latest offering, audited.com.
Cool, great. Yeah, so I'm founder of audits.com. I was previously a co-owner of an agency back in the UK, which was acquired in 2021. I've been consulting in search, or what is commonly known as SEO, for around 20 years. And I specialize in kind of scaling traffic, fixing algorithmic issues. And also a lot of work that I do is work based around sometimes long-term declines in organic traffic, which leads to a decline in organic revenue. So a lot of my work involves getting involved with the client at a point where things aren't particularly great and trying to turn that around. My client base tends to be mostly VC, PE-backed companies, and I often work for the private equity firms directly and work within their portfolio, business owners and enterprise-level clients. Historically, in terms of e-commerce, I've worked with M&S, John Lewis, Boohoo, ASOS, O2, Groupon, and some of the larger marketplaces like Eventbrite. And at the moment, I'm currently working with one of Australia's largest marketplaces, one of the US's largest US real estate marketplaces. And this is a nice segue into e-commerce. I've just finished a technical audit for a Shopify Plus homeware store in the UK, which has been interesting. Lots been uncovered there. But yeah, so that's me.
Amazing, thanks. Yeah, it's amazing. The brands you work with it's quite an incredible portfolio, and the breadth across some of that. I mean, SEO at scale across large catalogs, large product, large pages is always interesting to get into the details. Right, so let's set some context before we get into like deep questions, which is about how have you seen the organic search space change over the last few years? Like, what are the key search engine updates? What are the impact that changes have been having on brands?
Yeah, so in terms of how you rank a website, and what I'll try and do today is I'll only really talk within reference to e-commerce search, because other areas of search and SEO have a different landscape. Google reacts differently, but I'll try and stick just to e-commerce and search here. So how you rank a website in terms of ensuring that it appears high up in the search results hasn't really changed. It's always been about brand, product, experience, UX, UI, brands, links, citations. That hasn't changed. But what has changed is the landscape that we now work within and the presentation layer of search. So for many, many years, we've been used to someone going into Google, doing a search, and the results that come back have, in most cases, really over 15, 20 years, haven't really changed. We've had things such as position zeros, featured snippets. We had the introduction of a fourth paid search result, which was not there previously. But now we have AI overviews, which is just one of a long list of things that over a longer period of time has changed. And the presentation layer has changed in that when someone now does a search, they don't necessarily get exactly the same search results every single time. Google has multiple products now within search where you could end up. So within e-commerce, if you do a product search, 9 times out of 10, you're going to end up in the shopping tab at some point within your journey. What's also changed is not just the product side of Google, but the actual where the search happens. So historically, it's always been in Google. Now, when people are reviewing or looking for additional information on products and services, they might search in TikTok, they might search in Instagram, and now we have platforms, AI platforms such as ChatGPT. Now, based on the data that I've seen over a long period of time and the more recent data within AI search, those numbers are still very, very tall. But for the first time in, over the last few years, have seen search becoming fragmented. And it's fragmented at a presentation layer and at a product layer. And what's happening is where someone would traditionally search within Google, you are now provided with 6, 12 products. And it doesn't matter whether Google actually has the inventory for that product search. It will show you products if it's a product query. So for example, if I'm searching for like fishing tackle boxes, even if Google doesn't have any tackle boxes to show you, they're going to shoehorn in fishing rods or fishing jackets or gilets or something like that, because they want to ensure that the next step in your journey gets into that shopping funnel where they can then plaster you with ads. Now, what's also become, or what has changed is being able to measure the performance of search. And that's become harder because we've had things such as cookie policy changes at a country level, state level. We've had privacy, the introduction of VPNs. Browsers have become more private. We've got Apple, who strip out a lot of the referrer data, combined with Google Analytics 4. So like if anyone that's logged into Google Analytics 4 in the last year or so will know how difficult that place is to get the information that we used to have so easily. So it's been diversified, and the data that we're getting off the back of search has become, I guess, less useful, less transparent. For most clients, I find around anywhere between 40 to 60% of direct traffic is organic traffic, split across brand and non-brand. And it's become harder. And this isn't just an SEO thing as well, right? This is all search. I'm talking about here. All search has become harder to measure because of all of those reasons I've just listed. We do have, in terms of e-commerce, if you're running feeds via the Google Merchant Center Next, as it's called now, you can get additional layer of information in that platform as well. So if you're running the free search feeds, and if you're not, and you're an e-commerce retailer, you should be uploading your feeds into Merchant Center Next. It's a very easy source of traffic, but it's very hard for us to know how that traffic that happens across Google products is being attributed into Google Analytics. And lastly, I guess what else has also changed from an SEO, this is more SEO perspective, but the the changes in Google historically for like 15 years, probably longer, never ever been picked up in the media, right? Nobody is interested about SEO at all. The only people that are interested in SEO are SEOs. And the media has never been interested. But what's happened is the media have jumped on the AI overviews being flawed and incorrect. Therefore, Google now is just associated with SEO. So what's happening is all the conversations about AI overviews is coming back to SEO, when the reality is AI overviews affect all channels. Wherever search happens, it affects all channel data. So there is opportunities there, which I might come on to in a bit, but it's not how you rank anymore. What's changed, it's just the presentation of that search.
What do Mattel, Victoria Beckham, Sennheiser, and Glossier all have in common? They power their businesses with Shopify. Shopify is the most innovative and scaled commerce platform on the planet. It also happens to have the best converting checkout on the planet. Shopify, powering the future of enterprise commerce. Find out more at shopify.com/enterprise.
Yeah, and the AI bit, I think let's drill into that, because that's really interesting. So I was having a conversation. I'm part of a mentoring program. I'm working with a couple of smaller brands, and one of the conversations came up the other day about, do I need to worry about the AI results? Well, is it just going to kill my organic search? So I think you're right. They're making a big push. There is questions around the credibility and accuracy of the content, and it is experimental, and they are learning, and I'm sure the accuracy levels will get higher and higher. But what are you seeing? Like, is it having a fundamental impact on organic search visibility and click-through rate of your actual organic listings that you're getting below there? Because the AI results are right at the top of the page, and you're right, they answer a lot of question-based searches.
Yeah, the AI overviews are definitely impacting the click-through rate of both organic and paid. There's an agency in the US called Sear, and they released some data a couple of weeks ago, which was based on, I can't remember how many queries. It was quite a lot of AI-based queries, and queries that had AI overview results. And then they measured the click-through rate across paid and organic, and there was generally a negative impact. But what's happening is the search is still happening, right? It's just, it's now fragmented. So it's often that the search will go into another part of Google, and therefore when we're measuring how we traditionally measured search, doesn't work anymore. It's broken because we're not piecing all the bits and pieces together. And also we're not really sure how, for some of these Google products, how that traffic is being attributed. Because, for example, as SEOs, we use Google Search Console, which is a free tool that gives you keyword data and lots of information about your site. So if you're working with smaller retailers and they don't have Search Console set up, they should set it up. There's lots of great stuff in there, but it doesn't measure AI overviews at the moment. So it will likely measure the impact that you would have on a particular query. So if you ranked really well for children's desks and you were number one in the traditional results, if you've now got an AI overview popping up or a shopping result, that will negatively impact your results, unless you have a really strong brand where people just kind of see past that. Search isn't disappearing, right? And that's another thing that the media keep jumping on. But Google timely announced last week that they have reached a record 5 trillion searches, so it means that search is still going up, but there are caveats to that, in that Google search results have gotten worse, right? The quality isn't quite there. And if you believe all of the leaked emails and stuff that are out there, that there is a suggestion that Google search is deliberately worse to generate more queries, to generate more advertising and more revenue. There's lots of interesting leaked emails on the web about that. But so yeah, it's not that search is disappearing. AI is going to have an impact for all channels. And I think that is really important, because every conversation I have, it keeps coming back to SEO and AI, but it's not. It's all channels. And what we're seeing in particular with e-commerce and product-based searches is, and I saw it, I haven't seen it myself, and I don't know if you have, but Google is comparing product results live in the search results now. So, for example, if I'm comparing two sets of running trainers, rather than ending up on a blog, Google is pulling in and doing the comparison there live in the search results. So it is also going to hit a lot of top of funnel content. So if you're a brand or retailer that had a community that drives a lot of search traffic, I suspect Google will and other AI agents will swallow that up at some point and try and do the comparisons live within the search results. There are retailers and e-commerce retailers out there that are somewhat heavily reliant on community-driven, especially user-generated content. But then also there are retailers that don't do any of that and very much driven by PDPs and PLP traffic. So yeah, there is definitely, it's already happening, right? So it's something that isn't going to change. So you need to look for opportunities elsewhere.
Interesting. No, I've not seen that comparison direct in the SERPs. I've seen so much AI generated content on what would have previously been like information based, like I call it pre-qualification searches before you've decided on a category, a brand, a product, where actually Q&A based search and content based pages used to actually work really, really well. And when snippets of information and structured data could help you get into those search results. But I've definitely seen that superseded by big AI chunks at the top of the page. So how does the format work for the comparison then? Is it like a product shopping ad strip, or is it very different?
Yeah, it is pretty much like that. It just grabs all of the factual based data and tries to make like for like comparisons. I suspect for the kind of hardcore researchers who are very much into detailed product information, I suspect there's probably not going to be enough information in there unless Google starts pulling out snippets of text around like influencers recommend X because of X. That would be a real kicker where like if you've gone off and interviewed someone for your brand and they provided that information and then it's just being mined and scraped, and then that next click in that journey won't be off to the retailer on an organic click. That will be going for an ad, right? Wherever Google can get that ad in, they'll be going through that.
Yeah, this is the other conversation came up the other day about why it's hard to really accurately, granularly measure organic and improvements and attribution, whereas as much easier as it on paid, and there's an obvious reason for that because all of the media companies, that's how they're basically focused to make money. But so looking at that, so we talked about AI, you've talked about that the visual estate changing and Google bringing more information and different formats into the SERPs to answer like certain different types of search. Does this fundamentally change how marketers and content teams need to approach SEO? Because as you said, the underlying mechanics of what happens to rank well haven't significantly changed. So do people need to adapt strategies, or is this more about understanding and realizing that you can't control it, protect the real estate quite as much as you used to be able to?
Yeah, I guess the answer would vary the type of retailer and brand you are. If you're a D2C brand that's going for like mega growth, needs to just get as much visibility as possible and show investors on various rounds that you've considered AI, there are ways to manipulate, right? So anytime Google changes anything, it opens up more backdoors for manipulation. I'm not personally a fan of manipulating the search results, but if I was going for growth, and I would potentially take those risks. And there are ways that you could manipulate your way into those AI overviews. And it might later on, it will get burnt, right? So over 20 years of Google, anything that you've been able to almost manipulate has either got burnt or has become very, very expensive to achieve. The fundamentals still matter. I would be focusing on, for e-commerce retailers, I'd be focusing on brand plus product searches, and brands plus product search demand. I'd be looking at audience-led content that works across kind of all channels. So lots of content teams have this thing of you need to create 10 blog posts a month type path. And usually that's geared around organic search demand. I would be probably looking at broadening that horizon of like, is this going to work for email? Is this going to work for social? I wouldn't, if I was creating content in a content team, I wouldn't be putting all my eggs in the organic basket or SEO basket as it's known. One area that is no different to what we were always meant to be doing, but citations and references and co-citations across the web. So if, like you see it all the time, mainly they're affiliate-led content on newspapers, but if someone is doing the best letterbox flowers article and you're not in that top 10 list, it's very, and that happens again and again and again, and you're not getting mentioned, it's very likely that the AI overviews won't include you at some point. At the moment, the kind of way that those best lists, which Google burnt, Google hates, now it creates them. Those lists are what are driving the AI overview results. So you need to be mentioned and referenced in a positive sentiment. So another thing that marketeers should be looking at is brand sentiment across the web. So traditionally, even though you're not meant to do this, but everyone did it, if you're gating your reviews, right, so that your reviews on your website are mostly positive and mostly positive in, say, one third-party platform, and that third-party platform ranked well for your branded reviews and your website ranked well for your branded reviews, AI overview will be looking much wider than that. So whereas before as SEOs, we would protect page one for review-based queries, and that's very easily done. Now, if you've got terrible reviews across all the other platforms and people are ruining your product on Reddit, all of that sentiment will be brought into the AI overview. And that will, I think, like brand reputation and online reputation management will have a bit of a kind of rebirth, because people are going to have to go and clean up the web. Like the AI, the data that the AI overviews are using is really old, right? And it's lazy. So if you've had a bad review on Reddit from something 3 or 4 years ago, it's likely going to pull that in. And there's an area where for AI overviews, and Google mentions it quite a bit in its merchant center, where things like for e-commerce sites, sentiment around fast delivery, clear and transparent returns. Like if people are constantly leaving reviews and comments like, this person, we can't get in contact with customer service, they said they were going to deliver it in 2 weeks when the reality is 4 weeks, rather than like having 1 or 2 reviews that most people read, AI overviews is going to be pulling all of that in and summarizing it. So like 5 years of reviews, if you're a furniture retailer that promises 2 weeks delivery and it's drop shipping from China on a 8-week ship, like that is going to be pulled through. So and that comes back to, these aren't even really SEO things, right? It's like product, brand, customer service, customer-led initiatives. I feel like that's where a lot of retailers are going to get a little bit like, oh, Jesus Christ, that review we thought we got rid of is back haunting us.
Do you know, it's a really important and interesting point, actually, that you can be damaged organically by other elements of the business rather than the content that you're obsessively optimizing on the page. I think that's such an important takeaway. People understand that that search engines like Google are looking at quality signals across the estate, not just what you can control. And one area I was interested about, you posted, I remember when it was, might have been at the end of last year, it was about when brands have to think holistically about protecting their brand estate for organic. And you've touched on one bit there, which is service quality and reviews. But the other bit you wrote about was discounts, and how still a lot of brands do not try and manage and control, like search for brand-based discounts. It typically will just go straight out to a discount site. Where do you see e-commerce sites failing, and what should they do about it?
Yeah, I think it was Ahrefs, which is a big software platform for SEOs, but it has one of the largest databases of search data. You can use it for paid search as well if you're not familiar. But they did a study a few weeks ago. I think it was 150 million queries. And they said around 50% of all queries were branded, which if you have access to lots of Search Console accounts, that's pretty much bang on for most retailers. Like anywhere between 40 to 70% of brand, non-brand, kind of in that bucket. So that is a lot of traffic that is branded. And it is the most untapped, most undervalued source of organic traffic there is. And that traffic is usually high intent, high converting traffic, and no one optimizes it for it. So where we normally see brands lose out is normally to affiliates, and not necessarily good affiliates. So not all affiliates are bad, and I should say that not all discount code sites are bad, right? There is value in a journey to have discount code sites out there. But if you're a site where a large percentage of your referral traffic revenue is coming from a discount code, most of that traffic will be through branded organic search, and it's just that you haven't optimized for it. But optimizing for branded search, Google's made it really easy, right? So if you're not ranking for a query related to your brand, you could put up a page, and within less than 10, 15 minutes, that page, if it's a discount code site or discount code page or voucher code page, that could be generating revenue within 5-10 minutes. Because what's happening is, if you don't try and optimize for your branded queries, and you've got a large amount of traffic demand in that branded query, somebody else will optimize for it and they will monetize it. And no doubt you'll be at the end of it paying for it. So it's not about not paying affiliates. It's about controlling the user experience. It's about you get more analytics data because you're getting the final cookie. You're getting you're controlling the experience, your branded experience. So if you had a shop, you wouldn't want someone coming into the shop and then seeing a completely different experience to what you offer in store. And that's kind of how the discount code sites are. And unfortunately, a lot of the discount code sites are bad, and they are usually set up through sub-affiliates and hidden affiliates, and it can get a bit murky in that space. So you could I've shared it on LinkedIn a while ago, but there's literally a very easy template that you can do. It take 5-10 minutes for someone to create, upload it to Google or upload it to the internet, and it will be indexed, and you'll start driving traffic, and you can control that experience. There's nothing, and it's not to say that you don't have discount codes on other sites, because some of the big discount code sites, they'll have email databases and other ways to generate traffic to send to you. But if they're just leeching off your branded organic traffic, that shouldn't be happening. And there are other areas like competitors doing comparisons, like your brand versus their brand alternative queries, like all of those. No one should be leeching traffic off your brand. Back in Google's made it easier now for brands to do this type of activity. If we look at like maybe 10 years ago, I was working for a designer outlet website, which is no longer around, but we were able to outrank for like Ralph Lauren queries, or Mulberry or Burberry jackets, Mulberry bags, tote bags, because back then it was easier to do. But now Google doesn't really want that to happen. So I wouldn't just let other people leech, and you're ultimately paying for that click as well, one way or another eventually. So yeah, there's things like that you can do around your brand. And also there's other things you can do in terms of clearing up your visibility across the web. So if you're a website, e-commerce website, has been online for maybe, let's say 6-7 years, you've been online plus if you've been through lots of SEO agencies year by year, as unfortunately seems to be the case for many, your PLPs and your PDPs have probably been over optimized. So if you go onto your PLPs and you've got some filler text at the top, some filler text at the bottom, say you're selling mid-century wardrobes, and then you've got your products shoehorned in the middle. If you've got information at the top of the page about the history of designers in mid-century furniture and who they are, what they did, and what became popular at what times of year, and all of that kind of thing, all of that noise around your PLPs is distracting Google from really understanding, and the AI agents really understanding what your page is about. So if you do, and that means that if you are trying to rank for brands, because you've got noise interfering with Google signals, it makes it easier for competitors to rank for your brands. So it's not a case of like, sometimes it's not a case of not doing something. It's sometimes a case of trying to over optimize, creating noise. And then that means that it makes it easier for competitors to leech off your branded traffic. So yeah, if you've got an e-commerce site and you've been told to put filler text here, filler text there, get rid of it. It rarely makes any positive compounding effects over the longer term.
I think that's really sage advice, because I think a lot of sites get into this habit because it's, well, we need to have some SEO text at the top, and but what's it serving? What's the purpose? Yeah. And instead of thinking, what content do we need on the page to help customers find the right solutions and get there quickly to give them the best customer experience? So that's sensible advice. So I've really found this interesting, and I'm sure there's probably some people out there who could do with some deeper advice. If anyone wants to reach out, ask some more questions, or is interested in audits.com and how that audit service could potentially help their site and help them better optimize, how do they reach out?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, audits.com is probably the best. Or I'm on LinkedIn quite a bit these days. Less so Twitter, which is a shame. I do miss the old Twitter conversations. It was really also a very helpful place for career growing in the early days. But yeah, LinkedIn and audits.com. And just a couple of other things as well. I just feel like luxury brands, I think, are going to struggle in e-commerce AI world. I do think that they are going to struggle. And I think we're going to see a change in Amazon. As living in Australia, you don't really use Amazon like you do in the UK or US. And so when I do go and use Amazon, I realize how horrendous it is and how horrible it is to use. I feel like there are probably two things on the horizon that are going to happen. A big change in Amazon related to AI, and luxury brands are going to struggle as well.
Interesting. And for those of you who are interested in reaching out, Carl's contact details are on the landing page. But Carl, I really appreciate you taking the time to join us in your evening in Australia. I could carry on asking loads of questions. I find it fascinating, but I won't. Should leave you to enjoy your evening with your family. Always a pleasure to chat, mate.
Likewise. Yeah. Thanks for the invite, and have a good day.
You're listening to the Inside Commerce podcast, hosted by experienced consultants James Gurd and Paul Rogers.
Inside Commerce is your fast track to digital knowledge, featuring interviews with leading e-commerce retailers, industry thought leaders, and the C-suite of key tech companies to explore the latest in digital strategy, customer experience, and tech. Discover what the latest trends really mean and get practical advice based on experience to help fine-tune your e-commerce strategy and tech stack. Follow us on LinkedIn and reach out to James or Paul if you'd like to discuss an e-commerce project. We hope you enjoy the latest episode.